This is an LLD production.
Welcome to this episode of Owlia's Opinions, the new podcast in which we take a better look into the world we love, learn new things, and debate the toughest issues the world has in store. I am your host, Armon Owlia. I am a journalism student here at Drexel University in Philadelphia, and it is time to enter the new School of Thought. First of all, thank you everyone for listening into this week's show. For once, there will not be an update for the Old School Demon Show. However, there is an update on my end. I will be traveling to London and be visiting the sights, sound, and broadcasting wonders of the United Kingdom. Feel free to follow along on our social media, all at Love Learn Debate, as there will be a few familiar people as well as my own personal documentation. Because of my excursion, this show will be a special British edition of Owlia's Opinion, so without further ado, let's get to it. So the United Kingdom is probably one of the most historic and relevant countries in the world, and as such is one of the most studied and highly anticipated places to go amongst the travelers of the world. I've personally been to London once before, around August of 2016, shortly after Brexit. What struck me so much about London was how unique and different it was, and how enthusiastic the people were even shortly after the British referendum known as Brexit. More on that later. Ever since I left, I always wanted to return. And back in mid-April, I was given that opportunity by my teacher, the person who taught me everything I know about working in television news, and Emmy Award-winning producer, Michelle McHugh. Drexel University holds a program every year in which originally graduate students would have the opportunity to go to London to study British television and the differences between American and British programming, taught by Drexel professor and former NBC News London bureau chief Karen Curry. This year, however, Drexel opened the program up to undergraduates, meaning, for the first time, I would be eligible. After a few months of paperwork and maneuvering, I was confirmed. So these last 8 weeks, during which I've studied, I've learned quite a lot about British television, which can be an episode all of its own. So now, I get to go back to Britain and learn even more than before. And while I'm there, I'll be taping a segment for Drexel University's television news station D News, which will be the first D News segment ever taped outside the United States. Well, it's time for another British invasion, and I'm ready to pull it off. God save the Queen. So, we're now going to take a short break. When we come back after a performance from John Appel, I'm going to be talking about, well, I can't say it. So, I'll let Ed Sullivan take it from here.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles!
We'll be back after this.
Oh, you showed me love like it was a hit and run. Oh, you showed me love like it was a hit and run. Oh, you showed me love like it was a hit and run. Like it was a hit and run. Like it was a... You came and went just as soon, and left me longing for you. If the tree falls in the forest, but no one is there to notice, it doesn't make a sound. If love is true and then over, then baby, what was it all for? No starting over now. Oh, I don't believe in heaven anymore. It was here when you were in my world. 'Cause now I'm playing the waiting game. Oh, you showed me love like it was a hit and run. what is the purpose of anything we ever do? Whether it is or it isn't, we only live in the present, so what's a soul to do? Oh, I don't believe in dying anymore. Just as much here as you were before. I'm stuck playing a waiting game. Oh, you showed me love like it was a hit and run. Oh, you showed me love like it was a hit and run. Oh, you showed me love like it was a hit and run. Like it was a hit and run. Like it was a... Just because things are not the same does not mean that they never were. Today does not invalidate the feeling that was once so pure. And when all that you know is pain, the beauty stands out easier. And when all that you know is pain, the beauty stands out easier. Oh, you showed me love like it was a hit and run. Oh, you showed me love like it was a hit and run. Oh, you showed me love like it was a hit and run. Like it was a hit and run. Like it was a...
So that was Hit and Run by Jenna Pell, and I feel that this is a good showing of talent by Pell. It definitely has the pop feel and cleverly mixes the visualization of broken love with the concept of a car accident. Also, I love the fact that the song really changes in style about midway through, and it's a very dynamic and very good song, and considering this was the first track I ever got to listen to from her, I was quite impressed by her talent, and frankly, I think she definitely has a very bright future. Again, the song is Hit and Run. The album is Voice Memo, available now on iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. All links will be in the description. On New Year's Day 1961, talent executive Dick Rowe of Decca Records failed a quartet during an audition. The quartet had a strong local following in the English city of Liverpool. However, Rowe was not impressed, even going so far as to saying, quote, guitar groups were on their way out. About 5 months later, George Martin of Parlophone Records, a branch of EMI, would sign the band, leading to an almost decade-long stretch of hits that would cement the four from a local act to music legends, wholly responsible for a new era of rock and music simply called the British Invasion. The band that Rowe turned down was the Beatles. Now, we all know the Fab Four, as all four are well accomplished both as Beatles and as solo acts. Sir Paul McCartney, John Lennon, George Harrison, and Sir Richard Starkey, better known to the world as Ringo Starr. However, what isn't as well known is their story. The story of how four young men from Liverpool would end up becoming the highest selling rock band, actually, I'm mistaken, the highest selling musical act of all time. The story began in Liverpool, England in 1956 with a 16-year-old John Lennon playing with his own band, the Quarrymen. The next year, after their second concert, Lennon would meet 15-year-old bassist Paul McCartney, who would join the Quarrymen as well. They would be shortly joined by George Harrison, who had the hardest time getting into the band. The band enjoyed moderate success, however in 1959 all members of the Quarrymen, except for McCartney, Harrison, and Lennon, left, spinning off the Quarrymen into a band called Johnny and the Moondogs. They would then be joined by Lennon's friend, Stuart Sutcliffe, and drummer Pete Best, who created the original lineup of the Beatles. After performing in Hamburg within 2 years of forming, both Sutcliffe, due to dying of a hemorrhage, and Best, due to being fired, would leave the band, leaving the Beatles to look for a new drummer, which they found in Ringo Starr, cementing the now classic lineup. They would later perform in the pubs and restaurants in Liverpool before being signed by Parlophone Records, a branch of EMI, and getting a manager in Brian Epstein. Their first album, Please Please Me, was a major hit in the United Kingdom and the United States, sparking the phenomenon known as Beatlemania. After their infamous performances on The Ed Sullivan Show in 1964, they released their LP with the Beatles, again considered a hit by many, following it up with the albums Beatles for Sale, Beatles 65, and Help, all of which helped increase the legacy of the Beatles. The next step in their evolution came when releasing their album Rubber Soul in 1965, as their musicianship was considered much stronger than their earlier efforts, and giving Rubber Soul a reputation as one of the greatest albums ever made. The complexion of the band changed drastically in 1966 when John Lennon made the remark that the Beatles in America were, quote, bigger than Jesus, causing record sales to plummet. However, they were able to recover slightly with the album Revolver, after which they announced that after their 1966 US tour, they would never tour again and focus on working in the studios. The result? Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the greatest album ever produced by the Beatles, with songs such as Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, I Get By with a Little Help from My Friends, and A Day in the Life, proving to be the beginning of what will become their style of fantasy storytelling within their songs. However, after the death of their manager Brian Epstein in 1967, things started to go north. The members of the Beatles felt they were all ready to go their separate ways, and on top of that, John Lennon would begin his affair with artist Yoko Ono, which heavily fractured the group. Despite this, though, they released 4 final albums, all of which were met with high critical success. 1967's Magical Mystery Tour, 1968's White Album, 1969's Abbey Road, and finally 1970's Let It Be, which would turn out to be the band's final album before breaking up in 1970, ending Beatlemania. Despite everything, however, the legacy of the Beatles continues to live on. All 4 men have been inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not only as Beatles members, but also as individual talents. It's clear that nearly 50 years after they released their last album, that the Beatles will forever claim a piece of immortality. So what do you guys think? Do you agree or disagree? If so, please put a comment on www.lovelearndebate.com, go to the Learn tab, and you'll find the article there, as well as a personal top 10 of the greatest Beatles songs of all time. Sorry in advance. We're going to take a break. When we come back after this performance by Joseph Januka, I'll talk about a major conflict that has been brewing for several years, and has been a major catalyst for events even happening here in the United States.
The moment I found you, the moment I loved you, the moment I met you, I'd be nothing without you. I'd have a vagrant of a soul without you building it a home. Baby, baby, darling, you saw me in the dark. You wanted to dance, that was the start. My journey ended the moment I found you, the moment I loved you, the moment I met you. I'd be nothing without you. People say we look so easy, they don't see the work it takes to keep it going strong. A novice of the heart, you taught me love and lust. My soul shifted with you the moment I found you. moment I met you, I'd be nothing without you. Baby, you are my darling, my everlasting muse, my never-ending fantasy. Our future's bright and hopeful, you raise me up to the stars. But I'll only do it if you promise me I will do it with only you. The moment I found you, the moment I loved you, the moment I met you, I'll be nothing without you. The moment I found you, the moment I loved you, the moment I met you, I'd be nothing without you.
And now, some final thoughts. A debate to start at the end of this program. It was the vote that shocked the world, so much to the point that it would greatly influence the course of events to this very day. On June 23, 2016, over 50% of Britons voted for the United Kingdom to leave the European Union, the first time a country would do so since the founding of the EU in 1957. The move, known as Brexit, has had a tremendous economic impact on both the world and the European Union, with even the British pound, a normally stable and strong currency, taking a nosedive. Now, the reasons for Brexit were plentiful and long sown in the history of the United Kingdom. First, it is one of only 6 countries in the Union who does not use the euro, the official currency of the European Union. The attitudes of British politicians towards officials of the EU have been less than polite. In fact, they have been downright ugly. And, most important of all, over the last 10 years, there have been moments of economic instability that has had a tremendous impact on whether or not the European Union can survive, such as the Greek bailout. However, despite all of these reasons, the loss of Britain would prove to be catastrophic, as all the economies in the 28-member economic union have come to rely on each other. Meaning, if Britain leaves, it can encourage countries such as the Czech Republic and Sweden to leave as well, leading to an eventual economic crisis that would heavily damage not only Europe, but also the world, bringing us into another economic recession. The effect of Brexit has been felt not only in the economy, but also politically, with the world taking a slowly right-wing nationalistic stance that has been nothing but counterproductive to globalization. This can be seen in the election of Donald Trump as President of the United States, the creation of a coalition government between Austria's center-right party and far-right party, making its chairman Heinz Christian Strache the third most powerful man in Austrian politics, and even the rise of the far-right in Germany. Talks between the British government, led by British Prime Minister Theresa May, and the European Union began on March 29, 2017, and are set to conclude upon Britain's release from the European Union on March 29, 2019, about 7 months from now. However, it seems as if Britain has begun to fall off the rails, with no real strategy in mind, and key members of the government, such as Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, resigning. Also, the effort shown by the European Union to not give in to Britain's demands is extraordinary, with the Union doing everything in its power to make sure the United Kingdom does not leave the European Union. Safe to say, right now, Britain is up the creek without a paddle, and the only possible way out of this is to possibly do another vote on a referendum to stay in the European Union. If the British people know what's good for not only them, but for all of us, They should end this now. It can only mean disaster if they don't. What do you guys think? Do you agree or disagree? Either way, please go to www.lovelearndebate.com, click on the debate section, and respond, please. And while you're at it, don't forget to like us on Facebook by going to www.facebook.com/lovelearndebate. Follow us on Twitter at lovelearndebate. Follow us on our Instagram page at lovelearndebate. And even subscribe to the podcast on SoundCloud or iTunes Podcast, as well as going on and giving us a review. 5 stars would be great. My thanks to Omila Rejani for the graphics and show soundtrack, Hilary Lau and Lola Heffernan for their tremendous generosity in lending their voices, and John Appel, Joseph Yanuka, and Khalid Salim for their musical contributions. That's it for this week. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks ready to go. Thank you guys for listening, and until next time, keep loving, keep learning, keep debating. We'll see you next time on Olia's Opinions. Goodbye.
This has been an LLD production, recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.